Now, let's celebrate women in musical theatre in a big way, because Waitress is opening in the West End of London this week. And as I said at the start, it is the first ever musical in the West End of London, written, composed, directed and choreographed by women. Its star is Katharine McPhee. Welcome to the programme, Katharine.
Hi.
And the woman who wrote the songs and the music is Sara Bareilles. Sara, welcome to you as well.
Hello.
This is was originally a film, Waitress. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't necessarily have watched Waitress or heard about Waitress and thought, there's a hit musical. So what gave you the idea?
Well, actually, I'll give all the credit to our producing team, the Weislers, Barry and Fran Weisler.
They're men.
That is Barry's a man, husband and wife team.
Okay, all right.
So they bought the rights to the film, actually years and years ago. The film came out in 2007, and I think they acquired the rights in 2008 or 9. And so it's been a long road of very slow development. And when I moved to New York about 6 years ago, I got hooked up with this project that was in the beginning stages. There was a director, Diane Paulus. She was attached to it as already, and they were looking for the composer. And so we had lunch and we spoke about the film, which I wasn't familiar with at the time.
You watched it though?
I did. I went home and watched it, and I felt like it could sing. I felt like it made sense to make it musical.
The fact that you thought it could sing is why you are the success you are, frankly. Katharine, just set it up for us. It's in a diner.
This is like literally my worst quality.
Okay, well, sorry, so you can't do it. It's set in this amazing day-glow diner set in somewhere in nowhere America.
Yeah, we kind of leave it sort of non-specific, but it's the story focuses on a girl named Jenna Hunterson, and she works in a diner with two other girls, and she is a beautiful pie maker. She has a big passion for it. It's her sort of outlet to the reality of her life, which is this marriage that she's in. And she's quite unhappy. It's implied that it's an abusive relationship, a little physical, but probably more emotionally abusive. And she gets pregnant. And she doesn't want the baby, but she's going to keep the baby. And she feels like she's stuck in this life that she has, although she has this outlet of these wonderful girls she works with. But it's this thing of like what she's going to do with her life now that she's pregnant with a baby and a man that she's married to that she doesn't want to be with.
The answer is
she meets a gynecologist,
of course,
a new gynecologist in town, and things start to change.
Well, they really do. I have to say, I've met gynecologists. Most women have, and
but it's a male gynecologist, so that's the
yes, and I've met some of them. I've never. It is a slightly bizarre conceit at the heart of the story, Sarah, as you'd be the first to admit that she forms a passionate relationship with her gynecologist, and indeed, you know, and I know that such a thing is not really permissible, is it?
No, they don't advise.
No, they really don't.
Romantic relationships. But it's a part of what is so genius about Adrienne Shelley, who's the writer-director of the film, which is our source material for the musical, is that she was such a maverick of her time. This is a deeply feminist story, and was really sort of radical ideas for that time to have, first of all, to have the protagonist be a woman stepping into motherhood who is very verbal about, I don't want this baby. Mm-hmm. That's sort of sacrilegious to have a mother be admitting that it's a complicated relationship or that they're not excited about motherhood. Now, the story ends up being a really beautiful journey of her finding herself and finding her voice, but it's not the quintessential fairy tale. You know, the doctor is someone who's sort of unlocked something.
Can I just point out, we haven't mentioned the pies.
No,
neither of you look as though you eat a lot of carbohydrate, I have to say. But this is a West End show rich in carbs. And it is, you may not know this, National Pie Week in the UK this week.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Well, I suggest that you celebrate that on Thursday night. You really should.
Wow.
And perhaps try some of our traditional British pies. I'll send a gala pie to the theatre. That'll teach you. I want to know a little bit, Sarah, about how you write songs for musicals, because you're a really successful singer-songwriter outside musical theatre. This is very different, isn't it? Writing a song for someone like Katharine to perform brilliantly in front of a live audience.
Thankfully, writing a song for Katharine to perform is about the easiest thing in the world to do, I have to say. I'm such a huge fan of this girl right here. But the biggest difference for me was about trying to shift the perspective of who the storyteller is. I'm so used to writing autobiographically. I write from my own perspective. And so getting into the psychology of each character writing for Jenna was slightly easier than writing for the abusive husband, for example, but it was an exercise in, I call it radical empathy, where it's trying to find a way into the psyche of someone who you may or may not feel like you relate to.
Can we just we're going to hear the song She Used to Be Mine in a moment. Can you just set it up for us, Katharine? What's happening in the part of the show where you sing this?
I think this is sort of what they call the 11 o'clock number in a musical. She, oh God, how do I set this up? She is quite pregnant now, towards the end of the show, and she's been saving this money from her husband. She's been secretly stashing all this money to try and find a way to escape. And it all blows up in her face. Her husband finds all this money stashed in the house, and it's this sort of big argument. And he takes the money, and she's left there on the stage by herself. And it's kind of that moment where she realizes like she's not going to be able to make the change that she thought she was going to be able to make, the escape that she thought she was going to be able to make.
Let's hear it. Let's hear that song now. Here we go.
And then she'll get stuck and be scared of the life that's inside her, growing stronger each day, till it finally reminds her to fight just a little, to bring back the fire in her eyes that's been gone, but used to be mine. Oh, used to be mine.
Well, I'd had a drink, and that was the point at which I began to well up in the show. It is fantastic. What does the 11 o'clock number mean?
I don't know. You know what? I might have
It's a showbiz term.
You're
I know I
exactly
didn't
right.
make it up, but
it's sort of like the number towards the end of the show that's like the big showstopper, big
It's an
ballad. It's like the
an expression we use,
and
right?
I'm telling you, it's
Yeah.
those are the big show, like the
Showstoppers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was there, the audience was probably majority female. Is that what you'd expect, Katharine?
Well, actually, it's funny that you say that because Diane, our director, has been in the audience many, many times, and she said it's been a really eclectic group of people. It's been older couples, younger couples, a lot. Like when I was doing the show the other night, I saw a cute couple and I don't usually look into the audience, but I just happened to see in the front row this girl with her head on her shoulder of her boyfriend. So I actually don't think it's all women typically, but I mean, it is more women, but when I look out into the audience, I find it to be male and female. And I know that some of my friends who are my age in their 30s, they weren't sure they're like, oh, we're going to go see a musical called Waitress. And these guys, the show's very funny. I don't think it's just a show for women, but women obviously love the show, as they should, because it's a real feminist kind of show. But men love it too. I mean, from my experience.
Can I just ask, are they real pies, Sarah? They are
Some
real
of them
pies.
are.
What do you mean some of them?
Not every pie on stage, the ones that get thrown around.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of real food.
Do they look real?
I felt I could smelt them at one point.
Yeah, well,
That's actually true. They bake a pie in the lobby. This is something that started on Broadway. This is something that started in Boston when we did our out-of-town tryout. They started baking a pie in the lobby because that visceral reaction to like a fresh baked pie, we couldn't replicate it artificially.
Yeah.
So they actually bake a pie.
Right. Well, if that hasn't encouraged you to go, I don't know what will, really. But just a quick word on the whole idea of the female empowerment aspect of the musical and the fact that so many women are involved behind the scenes. I was really surprised this was the first time that this, with that many women in prominent positions in the West End. Why has it taken so long, Sarah?
I think we're just in the middle of a movement. I one of the things I'm so proud about in terms of being a part of this all-female lead creative team is that it wasn't a casting agenda. We were well into the process of making the show when someone sort of looked around and said, I don't think this has happened before.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't on purpose. And that to me is sort of my hope for the feminist movement, is that we get beyond, you know what I mean? Like
making a thing about it.
Yeah, where it's just like we were just artists at the top of our field that got brought together and making a project, and we happened to also be all women.
Yeah, and I stepped into it after the show's been going on Broadway for a long time, and I was brought to my attention. I thought, oh, that's funny, because I didn't have that like, oh, I'm surrounded by women thing. I was just like, oh, I'm just surrounded by people who really know what they're doing.
Well,
You know.
I really wish you the very best of luck. I don't think you're going to need much because you're brilliant. You know you are, Catherine. Thank you. That's Katharine McPhee, and lovely to see you, Sara Bareilles as well, who's the woman who wrote the songs and the music. Waitress opens at the Adelphi Theatre in London on Thursday of this week, and I suspect, well, it's going to run for quite some time, but it's one of those things that you would enjoy. You can almost certainly trust me on this, although I said before, I'm no critic, but I did like this. Thank you both very much.
Endorsement.
Yeah, that doesn't get any better. Stick that on a poster.